Hi, welcome back to the podcast. I have the lovely Lyndsay Phillips with us here today. So, hi, Lyndsay, how are you?
I'm awesome. So great to chat with you. I love talking with other women in the podcasting entrepreneurial space. So ready to help others.
Fantastic. I was put in touch with you through a mutual connection of ours, Jan,
I
and
love
he
him.
told me that if there's anyone that I need to talk to about podcasting, it was you. So
Aw.
I'm very, very thankful that you can be here. This is our 14-day challenge, and we're on day 6. And today I really wanted to get into what podcasting actually can do for a person in their business. So that's where we really want to go with this conversation. I want you to sort of introduce yourself first and let us know who you are and what you do, because I think it's very interesting that everyone knows that, you have a lot of skill around podcasting.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I've been in the content marketing space for what feels like forever, niche down into podcasting. And I mean, I've done launches, I've done productions, but what I love is helping podcast guests. And so we leverage and repurpose their content
Mm,
so they can boost their authority and get more leads and clients and grow their biz.
fantastic. Yeah. Look, it's something I've been podcasting for so many years, and I had done some podcasts in the past, and I was sort of on and off, and I was like doing them and not doing them. And then my Winning with Shopify podcast, when I did that back in 2019, I started that one, and I said, that's it. If I'm going to start this one, I'm not missing a week, no matter what. And I remember I put my podcast out on a Monday, and I was like, it just doesn't matter. The world stops until I get my episode out. And the difference it made to my business was just absolutely mind blowing, having that consistency with the podcast. And also, I was doing a lot of guest appearances back then. I've been on maternity leave now for a few years, so I'm just back. But podcasting has been really a passion of mine. And back then, people weren't so sure about it. But now, coming into podcasting, there's a whole talk around that it's just really flooded, and is there really, is it really good? But I think you'll agree with me that it's like just as powerful as it's ever been, probably even more so.
Heck yes, absolutely. And really there's always going to be attrition, right? There's pod fade. It's a real thing. There's massive stats. I don't remember any of them. And so there's always shows to guest on. There's always an audience out there. And when you see how many people are listening to podcasts, they're listening to multiple podcasts, they're loyal, they buy things from the ads. Yeah, you can't deny those stats for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. So we want to talk about guesting as a on podcasts. A lot of people are using guesting as a way to get leads into their funnel. But do you think that there's another way to use it? So rather than thinking of it just as, hey, that podcast has got my audience, so I'm going to go after that audience, is there another way to look at being a podcast guest?
Absolutely. And I think that's actually one of the problems is our mindset, right? Like how we think about what we're going to get out of a situation. I mean, you can take that in life in general, but what our goals going into it, if you have like a tunnel vision and you only think of one path, there is so much scenery and things that you can get out of it that you're not realizing. And I think that's where a lot of podcast guests go wrong. And I've seen this so many times, people that have they've guested on shows for maybe 5 months and they're like, oh, my e-list hasn't grown by thousands, so I'm bailing. But now, and like you said, how, people think the market is saturated, but it has grown. But I think now you have to think about it differently. But then also you have to be more intentional. You have to be more strategic. And so you just have to wrap your head around it slightly differently. So for me, guesting on a show, getting leads from a lead magnet that I share, honestly, it is not my top priority. It is exposure, visibility, being seen as an authority, as an expert. It's also the relationship that you have with the host, or when people are guesting on my show, the relationship that I have with them. I have created amazing referral partners, collaborations. I've been invited onto, webinars or speak to their masterminds. I mean, there's so many opportunities that are absolutely boundless that can come out of that one interview that you may not necessarily, it may not be at the forefront of your mind. And then, of course, my favorite, Carolyn, is using the content.
Mm.
Ask for the video from the host, get the audio, put it in your YouTube, create, repurpose it and leverage it so that you can you're in control of your own content and your positioning. And then you have control as well to get leads and clients with that content. And we can kind of go into that further, but I just want guests to realize what is possible.
Yeah, let's go into it now, because I think that that's really important, that people understand what the opportunities are and how they can actually use that content. Because I think there's a lot of people listening, and a lot of people say to me, don't you get nervous? Aren't you worried that, going on a podcast is actually going to ruin your reputation, or maybe you're going to say the wrong thing? Like, from saying the wrong thing, yeah, are you going to be put in an awkward situation?
Yeah.
So I want people to feel like that they should feel confident, even if they've never done it before, that it's actually okay. So can we just go through that? So if someone hasn't been a guest before, what should they think about, and how can they get started with it?
For me, the first step is thinking about your talk topics. Because if you go on a show and you're like, okay, I'm just going to leave it up to the host to ask me a bunch of questions, they could ask you random questions that you're like, it trips you up. So you don't look confident and you lose your like mojo on the show right there on air. Or you're not answering it in a way that showcases your authority. So you're not going to get as much benefit from that recording. So if you are very strategic, mapping out your talk topics, but then even mapping out what questions that you want the host to ask you so that you're setting up the interview for success. You're helping out the host. I mean, I love when guests give me questions because it's a great starting point. I can kind of picture how the interview is going to go. But then giving the host those questions, that they are setting you up to answer in a certain way so that you can talk about your method, your strategy. And then think about those sound bites that you can share and little success stories of clients that, things were horrible and then they used this method of yours and then they got this result. So if you map that out strategically, not only will the host be prepared and set you up for success, you will feel so much more confident in delivering your material because it's stuff that you already know and you will feel just mentally prepared. I think that to me is the first step versus like winging it and just relying on the host to hopefully ask good questions.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And I think that's something that, when I started doing this probably 8 years ago or something, I was exactly the same. That back then it was such a new thing, podcasting. So we didn't think through the actual strategy of it. And I remember a couple of episodes where I was sort of like just answering questions. And then afterwards, I remember thinking to myself, if I would have answered that in a particular way, it would have really been a great strategy. So
Yeah.
I think that is the number one thing, is understanding your purpose for what you're trying to achieve. Like you said, there's a lot of other things around that. There's a lot of other connections you can make. But at the end of the day, to get on those other webinars, to get those other connections, your purpose still is to get your point across of what you actually do really well, what you help people with.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's it, right? You have to think about no matter how nervous you are, like it can be nerve wracking. And I remember, being on shows. And I remember when I was on John Lee Dumas's, I was like petrified. But it's like if you're prepared and if you just think, okay, if two people hear what I have to say and those tips help them, that's all I care about. I'm not envisioning like a sea of people in front of me, and honestly, I'm focused on you. I'm focused on the host. I honestly just feel like we're having a chit chat and there are no other people. And I think just be yourself. I don't feel like you have to be perfect and, look perfect, sound perfect. If you stumble on your words, it shows that you're human. All those things.
I think that's actually a good point, because I think now, I remember there was a time that everyone was polishing their podcast to like this, taking all the ums and ahs out, and
Yeah.
now there's less of that. Now people are actually leaving those in, and it's more of a conversation. And yeah, I remember back, 8 years ago, it really was that. It was like, what's the, here is the question, and then the answer was, you could hear it
Yeah.
like to make it this one sound bite. Whereas now it's more of a conversation. I think that's what really works. And while we're on that, I heard some stats, and you probably know it better, about how people actually, and this is what I tell people about podcasting, that when someone's listening to a podcast, they feel like they're in a room with you, that they feel like they're sitting down and having a conversation. So that's why they're more likely to want to work with you. Do you have any sort of information around that, of like the results that you can get from people listening to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm terrible at remembering numbers, and so I don't remember stats. But when you think about it, when you see a picture of someone, when you see them on a reel, on a video, when you hear their voice, it invokes a feeling. You feel like, oh, I could totally sit and have coffee with them. I could have a beer. I could hang out. You just connect with them on like a human basic level. And you get a good reading for people by looking at their eyes, by their mannerisms, on like, they're my kind of people, or they're like, no, they're too boring for me. They're too energetic, whatever it may be. So you just get that instant human connection that you can get much faster versus the written word. You see, again, those facial expressions, all those, cues that just speeds up the, for lack of better terms, the buying process, because they're going to like you quicker and feel connected to you. They're going to trust you faster, and they're going to take what you say as an authority. And so they're more likely to take that next step to get your resource, to connect with you on social or go to your website, or, oh my gosh, I love what she says. She can totally fix my situation. I'm going to call her and I want to hire her.
And how would you actually go about that? What are the sort of steps that you would take for them to take action besides just hearing your voice?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have a bunch of strategies, but there are a few that I can share that are super quick. One is on your like LinkedIn profile, all social profiles, make sure that you share that you are an actual guest on podcasts. That's part of your profile. And share the episodes that you've guested on. Show people that you guested on this show, that show, the other, and publish it on your website. So just like a blog post, just like if you had a podcast and you were publishing the show notes on your website, publish those guest opportunities as well. Because what happens is when people are going to your profiles, they're going to your website. If they're looking for guests, they're going to see that you've already been there, done that. So it's a no-brainer for them. So you'll get more opportunities.
And you're willing to share it. So then they're more likely, yeah.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And for a listener, they'll see on your social that you guest on podcasts. They're automatically going to see you as an expert and kind of dig a little deeper. And on your website, if you publish your episode with show notes, don't be afraid to make your own, even if the host doesn't. So you're going to share that link on your social, in an email, on a LinkedIn newsletter, wherever. So you're pushing traffic back to your site. And then, on a blog post, how there's like a sidebar. So make sure that you have call to actions there. So your lead magnets, maybe you've got a Facebook group, maybe you do a webinar monthly, maybe you have a membership site. And then same with breaking up the show notes so that you have a call to action graphic that, again, maybe it shares one of the things that you're an affiliate for. Maybe it's one of your lead magnets. But the point is here that you're directing traffic to your site, not necessarily the host. Obviously, you're going to have backlinks and stuff, but you're having call to actions on that blog post that will convert those listeners to leads. So there's two really big points that I tell all of my clients to do.
Yeah, I love that. And it is worth it. And it really, I think even me as a host of a podcast, if someone was to do that with my podcast, I would be happy that my podcast is out in more places, that even if it's a link back to your website, even if you've created your own show notes, I wouldn't feel like, oh, how dare you do that? That's my podcast. I'd be like, for me, it's showing my podcast as an authority as well, because it's in more places. So
Yes.
it's working on both sides. And I know as a podcast host, I know that I never ask. So I know that when there's some of these podcasting networks that we're in, and that they ask you, are you willing to share the episode or are you not willing? I never ask, I never make it a regulation. I never say that they have to share it, because I don't want to force that on someone. If someone doesn't want to share it, they don't want to share it. If they want to share it, they will share it. Even if they say that they will, sometimes they don't anyway. So to
I
force
know.
it is not the way I want to do it. And so for me, if I see that someone's sharing an episode of my podcast, then I'm more likely, because when someone comes on as a guest on my podcast, I'm not always getting them on just once ever. There's a chance that I can have them back at another time to talk about something slightly different. So by me seeing that they're actually sharing the episode, I'm more likely to say, hey, come back on my podcast again, because I know that they're going to put it out there again. And then that person becomes an authority twice. And that looks even better for that person of, hey, oh, not only were you on this podcast once, but you've been on there again. So you must be interested. You must be knowledgeable, because now you're back there again. So yeah, I think sharing that on your own website, sharing it in your LinkedIn, in your own social media is hugely beneficial to yourself in so many different ways.
Yeah, honestly, I was just on a podcast a couple weeks ago and they gave me reams of content. I have never had a show give me so much stuff. And I actually posted on LinkedIn. I'm like, if someone gave you this much stuff, would you actually use it? Like a lot of guests don't. And I think like that is such a huge mistake. They again rely so much on the host to do all the heavy lifting and thinking, oh, they're going to tag me and I'll just share it. And like that's all. But the more you share it, the more reciprocity you're going to get from the host and their audience and like who's connected with them and they'll comment. But by like creating those reels, those YouTube shorts, not only are you getting in front of an audience that's not already following you just by the nature of YouTube shorts and reels, but by putting I always put like the podcast art on the reels just so it shows like this clip was from the podcast I was on. I want to give your podcast, attention, obviously, but I also want to show like, hey, I guested on a podcast, I'm an authority on XYZ. So I'm using and I'm picking and choosing the content. I was on a podcast once and they shared it, but they created a clip and it was the weirdest clip. It was like some random little side joke that we had like while we were talking, which is totally fine. Like we had a good conversation and there was funny moments, but they used that to promote the episode. And I'm like, that is not how I want to be positioned. Like, so like you can't give up the control where if you have the video and you can pick what clips and pick clips that you can use to segue to like push people to like get on a call with you or get a lead magnet or you've got a course coming up. So you can actually use that content to help push your social following to become leads. So you're getting so much bang for your buck, for lack of better terms.
Mm. No, it's so true. And I think there's two things that people sit on that they don't realize. They're sitting on leads that they've gotten into their email list and then they don't email them properly or communicate with them properly. And the other thing that they sit on is amazing content that they can be using in many different ways, repurposing. I always talk about just using, when you're a small business, don't try to do all the social media. Don't try to be everywhere at once because it's really hard. However, if you've got a podcast and you've suddenly got the shorts from it, then go and put it in as many places as you can. Because especially like you said, something like Reels and YouTube shorts, that content gets pushed out slightly differently than it would like a normal post on Instagram. If it's a reel, it actually goes out to a bigger audience. So you might not be constantly on YouTube posting things, but by posting those shorts on social media on YouTube can really help your business. Maybe not to get you a whole flood of leads, but just show you as an authority, because people need like 14 touch points before they buy from you. So that way it's just another place to get that touch point across.
Absolutely. And I even had a client of mine and she was a guest or maybe it was a summit, I can't remember. But so we made a bunch of shorts and what have you. And one of them, it just hit home for someone and it totally resonated. And there was a call to action on it. And they reached out to her and was like, I was so compelled with what you said there. I want to hear more. And she ended up becoming like a big ticket client. And that was just from a short. Like, it can happen when done right.
I just had that happen to a client of mine the other day. We put out a reel, and it was something that I threw together for her. And within like a few hours, she's like, "Oh my God, I got a client from it." Yeah, it works. Yeah. And this, cold traffic that if you wanted to pay on Facebook or like somewhere else, if you wanted to pay for those leads, it doesn't, it's not free. So this is actually free marketing. It's fantastic. So you use the reels a lot. You do the shorts. So let's step through. Let's just look at, if someone goes on a podcast, what would be sort of the start to finish, just in a quick sort of, what would they do to get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So, always ask for the raw video. And then you can put the video up in your own YouTube channel, and obviously the thumbnail, and optimize the description, have timestamps, all that good stuff. Get your show notes for it, put that as a post on your website, embed that video there.
How would they do their show notes?
I mean, there's tons of AI tools. We use a couple of different tools. I do love Cast Magic. Shout out to them. They were on my podcast recently. But they do need tweaking. They do need checking out. So you can't just blanket take them and run with it. Sometimes the bullets and the timestamps are completely funky. And you want to make sure it's got your voice and it's all benefit driven. But we usually have like a summary. There's bullet points of what people will learn, the timestamps of some key moments, which is also great for YouTube because it divides it up into chapters. And then I even do like kind of like your typical blog post where there's paragraphs, because this also enables you to SEO that post for a specific keyword, which of course Google loves. So once the blog post is done, we take, I call them snackable bites, but like little nuggets that showcases the guest on what their expertise is, things that people want to learn. So a quote, it can be, carousels are great. So if someone shares 5 ways to blah, 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 then you can create that carousel, and carousels always have a call to action at the end. So that's why I love them. And then reels, sometimes we do square videos if people are really heavy into LinkedIn and Facebook. And yeah, and just like slice and dice and pick good little like nuggets of information, and ones too that you can lead to like, hey, listen to more. Or if it's you and you're doing a solo episode, it can lead to, a segue into your lead magnet, or hopping on a call for you to do XYZ. So just kind of making that connection of like the content, the audience, and then your goal, and kind of like tying those together.
Fantastic. And so if someone had the goal of selling a high ticket coaching program, let's say they're selling like a $10,000 coaching program, how could they go about that to make that work into being a guest on a podcast?
I'm so glad you asked, because I literally was talking about this the other day with someone. My friend, I don't know if you've heard of him, Jay Fairbrother. He's like the mastermind guy. He was just on my show. And he uses podcasts to sell high ticket items. Obviously, he's the mastermind guy, and that's what his clients do as well. So it's not necessarily being a guest on a show and then at the end join my mastermind. Like, that's crazy. You just can't do that. But by being strategic again about those talk topics, the interview questions, where you have the opportunity to seed your mastermind. So it's like, as an example, my inner circle mastermind client was having problems with their email marketing, blah, blah, blah. And I use this system, and then their open rates increased by 30%. So it's like you name drop that mastermind and the name of it. So then they're like, ooh, they have a mastermind. So they hear it. They also hear that result. And then they're more likely to learn more and hear about it as well. And then when you get the video, of course, then you're going to pull that little snippet out. It'll name drop your mastermind. And then you can segue, if you want this kind of success as well too, put hashtag success below, and I'll DM you and we'll connect and talk about the mastermind. So it's using it, talking about it on the front end and seeding it throughout the whole entire, episode. Don't be crazy salesy with it. Like, it has to, feel natural and like conversational. But then using the content again to do that even further and take it to the next step.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that. I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize the power of when someone hears your voice and then hears that you have got you give a case study, you talk about, the success that you had, and then they people link it all together, don't they? They sort of go, oh, you're an authority, you're on this podcast. You're talking about a case study. So there's the authority, there's the case study, there's the proof. And then going into there's the results that I can also get if I'm listening to it. So I think there's a real power in that with podcasting.
Agreed. And not everyone is needing to go to the lead magnet, be nurtured for 5 months and then buy. You also need to know your clients, your avatar, what their like what your selling sequence or the customer journey is. And I find who said it? It was something like, I'm going to get this wrong. Whales don't, darn it, big whales don't something. I forget what it is. Don't swim through funnels or something like that. So if there's like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I forget how it goes. I need to write it down at some point.
No, that makes sense. Big whales
Don't
don't
swim.
swim through
Yeah.
funnels.
Like
Yeah.
if you're like a high powered entrepreneur and you're making 6, 7 figures and you're, going super, super fast and you know exactly what you want and what you need. If you see a solution, you're a fast action taker. You don't want to beat around the bush. You don't want to, oh, I don't know, maybe like you just want the thing and you want to get it done. So in those instances, this is why guesting on a podcast and you can talk about high ticket items in a non crazy salesy way and still get results. Because if your avatar is those whales or are those whales, then that will totally work.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day and she does this, some sort of mastermind. It's held once a year and you have to sign up and wait for the year until it's actually back on. And yeah, for me, I'm like, I'm not going to be on an email list for a year to go and do this
Yeah.
course. Like, if I wanted to do that course, I'd want to do it now. Like, there is no me waiting for a year for that to come up. So definitely, yeah, I would fall into that big whale category. Like for me, if I want to do something, I'm not waiting on
I
a
know.
list. So it makes total sense that you have some of your clients will be those people that wait the time, but then you want to get these big whales, like you said as well. So having that opportunity, I think, is fantastic. And so tell me a little bit more about how someone, if they've never done any podcasting, what could they do to get started with actually getting on a podcast?
I love the like pod matching, like different sites. I think it's too hard when you're starting off to try to like get the pitch email right. Like it's just such a slog, to be honest. But there are like Podmatch is a great one. I think there's other ones aren't coming to my mind right now, but that's one where you have your one sheet, you have your profiles, and it just matches you up because you put in like their credentials and what kind of shows you're looking for, and you can like search up. And I find that there's this automatic inner community feel where if you reach out to someone within that platform, they're definitely going to respond to you. They're not going to ignore you like you kind of get on emails, right? And then there are a ton of guest booking agencies as well. And what I love about them is that they can really help you get strategic about what you want to talk about, but they'll help you get strategic on what kinds of shows to be on because you don't want to be just on any show. You want to be on a show where you can make that great collaborative relationship or that you're going to be put in front of your exact ideal client. So that is really key. So that would be my 2 recommendations for sure.
I love it, and I agree with that 100%. So I'm also on Podmatch, and I think that Podmatch thing is that, from the side of being a host on there, I've put myself as a host. We have to pay, like, it's not that much to be a guest on there. I think it's like $30 a month or something. But then to be a host, you pay a little bit extra. But the thing is, if I'm on there as a host and I've paid the money to be a host, it's because I want the guests to come to me. So that is why it's got that community feel. It's not like you said, having an email reach out. It's someone reaches out, and I get a lot of them. I get a lot of people just cold calling, like cold emailing me going, oh, we've got this guest, or I'm a guest that I could come on your podcast. I never ignore them because I always love reading all of them. And usually I like the people. But there is that sort of like nervousness because back in the day when I started, there was nowhere to go. So I had to do it by myself. And I was always nervous, like, will this person actually reply? Will they hate me for writing them an email? Whereas something like Podmatch is just like, hey, we're all here for the same thing. So,
Yeah.
I can just reach out and ask you if I can come on your podcast and not feel like nervous that you're going to say no.
I know. It makes it so much easier. And because you can see that they've been on other shows, you can see examples, you can see right away like their profile, what they talk about. So it's so much easier to vet to see if they are a fit for your show or for you as a guest, what kinds of shows that you want to be on. And it's funny. People are like, "Oh, but how many downloads do they get? And what kinds of guests do they get? I only want to be on the big name shows." It's like, honestly, it does not matter. You just wanna get in front of your perfect avatar. That is it. Even if they only have 30 downloads per episode, it's like those 30 may be like your perfect client that are like totally ready to make a decision. So it's more thinking strategically about what kinds of shows that you're gonna be on.
Yeah, that's so true. You mentioned Entrepreneur on Fire as an example. There's very few people that would use his whole audience as their perfect clientele.
Totally.
So there's very few, like for me, being on his podcast, there'd be very few people that would fit into the category of what I'm actually looking for. So even though he's a huge podcast, it doesn't
Yeah,
mean that that's the right audience for you. So yeah, it's completely right. You're better off being on a smaller
totally.
podcast, someone that's got less people, but actually you're a perfect ideal client. And the other thing is, what you find is with some of these smaller ones, the people that are following them are really passionate
Yeah,
and they will listen to anything that host says. Like that host is saying that this person is good, I'm going to listen to this person. So, yeah, I think there's much more power in just finding the right audience than there is in the size of the. And now there was just a whole thing about the numbers that all changed in the last few weeks. That just showed that, so anyone listening that doesn't know what's happened, there was all this information that numbers were based on how many people were getting was that right?
yes.
Automatically brought to their phones. So if you subscribed and then it came to your phone, but people were not ever listening to it, it was just on their phone. And now they've changed the way they actually track the numbers. So now it's based on actual downloads or something. So now the numbers like have dropped by a lot. There's something around that. So people that were getting, say, 4,000 downloads a month and now getting 1,000. So it's completely changed the numbers.
It's skewed. Yeah, and because of the Apple rules as well and their disclosure, they don't wanna put out that their subscriber listened to XYZ episode. So, yeah, the numbers are completely skewed, and some hosts now show consumption rates. So, people are starting to look at that more. So, like, okay, it's great that you have so many people that are downloading or listening, but, like, how many people are listening to the whole thing? Like, that is really key.
Yeah, exactly. And that, I think that is more important because you also see it now on YouTube on the videos. You can see how many people are actually just skipping through and watching part of the video and not watching the whole video from start to finish. And that also makes a difference because you might have had 20,000 downloads or watches of your video, but if no one's actually watching it through, or even like for the first few minutes of it, then it really doesn't matter because you can buy a
Yes.
certain amount of views as well. So, yeah, I think the most important thing, more than the numbers of listeners or watchers, it really comes down to, is that audience your audience?
Wholeheartedly. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, is there anything else that you can give as advice to finish up for people who are listening right now and they think, okay, podcasting sounds really, really exciting. What can I do? I know, Lyndsay, you can help people as well. So, is there anything that you can recommend that people can take action on immediately?
I think if they open up their minds to leveraging and repurposing the content more, even if they take tiny steps, ask for the video, put it in their website, create a blog post, and share as much as you can and send an email to your list. Oh my goodness. So many guests forget to email their list that they were a guest on the episode. Great way to nurture your email list. There's a couple of quick points. look at your social media profiles, make sure that it's reflecting that you're guesting on podcasts, that you're a guest expert. And then in that featured section of LinkedIn, you can show that you're a featured guest on whatever episode or show. There's a couple of quick tips. I have a great guide if people want it. It's leverage your podcast .com/guest, and it's 3 strategies to leverage and repurpose your guesting so that you can create authority boosting content and get leads and clients.
Excellent. I'm going to put that in the show notes. So anyone listening or watching, if they want a copy of that, then they can get that in the show notes. That is amazing. And going by everything you said, there is definitely at least 20 snippets of great footage.
Yay!
You're going to be making your own content. I'll be making mine, and we'll get together and we'll like have little notes on, who did a better job at like snipping up that content.
Challenge accepted.
Okay, fantastic. Lyndsay, it was fantastic having you. I really appreciate it. Anyone listening or watching and wants to know more about what Lyndsay can offer and help you with, there is the information in the show notes. And please keep watching all of these 14-day challenges, because I have got so many more great guests coming up over the coming days. And Lyndsay, thank you again. You have been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.